What's going on YouTube? It's Tej, back again with another video, and today we are continuing our series of my way too early 2022-2023 season predictions going division by division. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video. If you do, be sure to hit that like button. It would help me and my channel out a ton. If you're new around here, want to see some more sports coverage, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. And also, comment some video ideas through the rest of the summer. Obviously, it's a little bit of a downtime for NFL coverage, so if you have anything you want me to talk about, I'd love to have some of your ideas down below. Also, let's talk about the AFC North, as that is the division we are talking about today. Now, if you missed my first video in this series, definitely go back. We talked about the AFC East, and that's why there are already 4 games populated in the Bengals schedule as they take on the AFC East as their, outside division competition this year, or at least one of the 2 divisions they'll see. But let's jump right into it with the Bengals. Obviously made it to the Super Bowl last year, make some big time improvements on the offensive line. Alex Kappa and, Lyle Collins immediately jumped to mind. So this is looking like a, complete offense. Lou Amaretto did a great job with the defense last year, and they look like they're bringing back a ton of pieces. Jesse Bates, we'll see how that piece unfolds, but simply put, this is one of the best teams in football, and I'm starting out the year with a win against Pittsburgh. It's obviously tough with these, division matchups, and I think Pittsburgh, depending on how the offense comes together with Matt Canada, could be better because it's hard to do much worse than what Big Ben was looking like last year, but I do think the offense will change, so there's going to be some newness. Let's go on the side that has a lot of returning pieces and a lot of that core still together despite some of the improvements we talked about. And then you fast forward another week, then I'm going to have the Bengals suffer their first loss of the season, and with those games from the AFC East division, they're now 5-1. I think Dallas is going to be another team that gets up to a hot start, kind of similar to what we've seen from them last year, but also teams like Arizona, the Raiders. Sometimes you'll see teams get up to a hot start and quick sprint off the line and then kind of falter off, and I could see Dallas doing something similar again this year. Plus, it's in Dallas, so let's give the Cowboys a bone, if you will, with a home win. We already talked about this Jets game. We talked about the Dolphins game. Again, go back and check out that old video. And, I'm going to have them losing to the Ravens here, so it's a 3-2 start. And, I think this AFC North is a lot more competitive than people want to give it credit for. Yeah, a lot of attention goes to the East, or the West divisions, AFC West, NFC West, but don't sleep on the AFC North, man. There's a lot of talent. I don't know if I'm really calling the Steelers super competitive in this division, but the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Browns, there's not a whole lot of separation there. So ultimately, I'm going to spoil a little bit something here, but I'm going to go ahead and have it be a series split between the Bengals and the Ravens, the second meeting in Week 18. So a 3-game win streak minimum to end the year for Cincinnati. Let's move on. And New Orleans is a tricky team because, especially, at home in the Dome, Jameis Winston could get hot, right? This could easily turn into a game with 500 yards, 3 touchdowns put up by Jameis Winston, but let's go with the law of averages here. More often than not, I will say the Bengals outplay the Saints, and let's give them a win on the road. I'll take the Bengals with confidence over the Falcons. And, like we talked about with the Ravens, I'm going to have it be a regular season series split. And, with the other, division battle, Ravens and Bengals, I had it home and home, and I'm going to do something similar here with the Bengals and the Browns. A lot of times it feels like it's a road and road split, but nonetheless, it's a split, so one team wins one team wins the other. It doesn't really matter what order they come into, but, lost their own Week 8 Monday Night Football, and this is, of course, assuming Deshaun Watson plays. That's going to be a really fun primetime game to put our eyes on. Bengals are better than the Panthers. Sorry, Panthers fans. Then coming off the bye, as much as I'd love to take the Steelers to get one up in the Bengals and make it, a full division split for Cincinnati, with the bye week, going into Pittsburgh, a team they had a ton of success against last year, there's no reason to think they can't sweep Pittsburgh again this upcoming season. I'll take the Bengals over the Titans. This is an interesting one. Sunday matchup between the Chiefs and the Bengals. Obviously, Cincinnati got both games against Kansas City last year. Maybe this was earlier on in the year. I would take Cincinnati just because there's so much newness that comes into a factor with Kansas City. But you got to think KC is going to be looking to get some revenge against Cincinnati. By Week 13, that wide receiver room hopefully has figured itself out. Patrick Mahomes has gained some chemistry with his new targets, Juju, MVS, and crew. So I'm thinking because this comes a little bit later and Kansas City's hungry for some revenge, despite that game being in Cincy, the Chiefs steal one on the road. And I'll take the Bucs winning one at home. It's always tough to go down to Tampa Bay, and plus I don't need the Bengals being, an undefeated team. 12-5 feels about right with what I would have gone with, and some, preseason predictions. So that's what I think for the Bengals schedule. Let's jump on to the Ravens. We've already got weeks 1 through 5 done. We'll just keep that up on the screen here. The Ravens are better against the Giants, but what makes this game interesting is obviously Wink Martindale, the former Ravens defensive coordinator, now DC with the Giants. Does he have a leg up on Greg Roman? That's going to be a fun game to watch, but I'll still take the Ravens as the better team. And just like I did with the Bengals, I'm going to have a split here. And you know what? For the sake of me keeping my argument sane, let's have it be a road sweep with the Browns winning in Week 7 and Baltimore winning in Week 15. But again, those two teams I think are really, really close in my eyes. And then Thursday Night Football, and I talked about this in my last video, it's a little bit of a crunch, and it's really easy to say Thursday night, home team has the advantage because they know the travel. You know, the percentages and win percentages in specific don't really bear the same story, but it is one I tend to find myself leaning pretty heavily on, and I'm going to keep that. You know, it's kind of easy to do that in the way too early setting. Obviously, once we get into our in-season predictions, my thoughts on these teams will change drastically, and maybe my way of thinking about it will as well. Saints on Monday Night Football against Baltimore. So, you know, by this point in the season, back-to-back losses after a, 6-0 start. I don't think I can come up with a quick example with a fully healthy John Harbaugh squad losing 3 games in a row. So that's really the strength this team has. One, it's super talented, and they have a dynamic former MVP at quarterback. They do a lot of things right. But John Harbaugh just keeps that team in the right direction. When they're playing bad football, it doesn't linger for long. When they're playing really good football, he finds a way to stretch out as long as he possibly can. So I'm going to say it stops at a 2-game losing streak, and it's a big Monday Night Football win for Baltimore on the road. Then the bye week against the Panthers. You kind of wish that bye week could come with, tougher opponent on the other side, more time to prep for a big-time game, but a win is a win nonetheless. We'll take down the Panthers there. They're better than the Jags. This Broncos game could be a really fun one, and a lot of this comes down to how healthy is that secondary in Baltimore, but I'm thinking about the addition to Marcus Williams and Kyle Hamilton. You get back a healthy secondary or a cornerback room and Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, and crew. That feels like a secondary that might be able to slow down Russell Wilson and, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy if he's playing at this time, KJ Hamler, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm leaning Ravens here. Plus they're at home and it's a tough place to play. So I'm leaning Ravens here. And then the first of 2 matchups against Pittsburgh with just, 2 weeks in between. These two teams always find a way to split. So I'm going to say Pittsburgh wins in Week 14. The Ravens get them back in Week 17. And then Ravens, Falcons, give me Baltimore there on Saturday Football in 13-4. And if I had to pick right now, I would say Baltimore is my pick to win the AFC North. I just think they're going to rebound, get right back on track. Got a lot of injuries last year and ended up losing, 8 in a row after Marlon Humphrey goes down. So if Baltimore stays healthy, I think they would be my pick to win the division. I am worried about that wide receiver room, though. But I think if you add a Will Fuller in specific, someone with that deep, over-the-top speed, you don't need them to be everything that Hollywood Brown maybe is developing into. You really only need that one-trick guy to get deep down the field and over the top of a safety that's creeping further and further into the box to stop the potent running game that Baltimore has. And honestly, Tylan Wallace, I think he ran a 4.45 in the 40. Don't quote me on that. Not this past draft, but the draft before that. But I liked him a ton coming out of Oak State. Thought they got him at a great value in the 5th round. Maybe he's that big play downfield weapon. Ran a lot of vertical routes with the Cowboys in college. So it's kind of interesting. This is the first time I'm doing it. This is all pure first reaction. But just like I have the Ravens atop the AFC North. Isn't that funny? But not by much. Obviously, the Browns are right there on their tail, I should say. And then let's move on to the Cleveland Browns. And I am doing this, of course, assuming Deshaun Watson is going to play this year. It is too hard to try to predict it's going to be a 4-game. It's going to be a 6-game. It's going to be an 8-game. It's going to be a 17-game suspension. I don't have that information. And, odds are, unfortunately, with the NFL, nothing will probably be done. So I can't predict a suspension. So we're just going to go ahead and move on, thinking that he might be playing the entire season. 2-0 start with a win against the Panthers. We already talked about this game against the Jets. Thursday Night Football, again, kind of my crutch here. But I can see Pittsburgh, obviously, not a whole lot of travel needed there, and especially with no Deshaun Watson. I'll take Pittsburgh's defense against Jacoby Brissett any day of the week. But if this is Deshaun Watson, that scrambling ability in a quarterback to move away from pressure that Pittsburgh can create, and it really allows the Browns to pick on a pretty bad cornerback room. I mean, Levi Wallace is fine. Ahkello Witherspoon had some moments last year, and I like Cam Sutton, but they're all solid, fine starters. You'd like them if they're their number 3. You'd really like it if they're your 4th quarterback on the roster. You could live with them being your 2. but they're all starters, right? They are 1 through 3 for Pittsburgh. So I could see this being a huge Amari Cooper game, and I could see Deshaun Watson, especially if Kevin Stefanski is getting him out of the pocket, finding a way to move him further away from the pressure and get him away from someone like a TJ Watt. And Stephon Tuitt actually today just announced his retirement, so one less lethal pass rushing option for Pittsburgh. But get Deshaun Watson, work him away from TJ Watt, and I think big things could come working against that weak Pittsburgh secondary. So a 3-0 start for the Browns, make it 4-0 with a win against the Falcons. Not a whole lot to talk about there. Cleveland's just better. I'm going to have the Chargers sneaking one on the road here. This LA team is going to be sneaky, and I mean, I don't want to say sneaky. A lot of people are saying they're going to be the best team in the AFC, so I don't want to say they're sneaky. That's just an outright lie. It's going to be a really good Chargers team. Let me try that again. So I can see this team, another one that gets out to a hotter start than compared to maybe a hotter finish. That's kind of a tough one to gauge because, those old Phillip Rivers Chargers teams used to always get out to slow starts, and then you would think the LA team gets out to hot starts when it's warm outside, but somehow Phillip Rivers used to always lead those Chargers teams to hot Decembers and Januaries, which made no sense in my mind. But maybe this is an LA team that, made some changes in the offense, trying to work the ball down the field. Maybe Joe Lombardi changes his tune a little bit, and it ignites this team to get out to a hot, quick start. And the Chargers win a heavyweight bout across the top of the AFC landscape in Week 5. We've already talked about, Week 7, 8, or 6, 7, and 8, excuse me. Bye week already talked about 10 and 11 as well. Bucks and Browns. I'll take the Bucks to win that one despite it being on the road. Brady is certainly comfortable playing into the latter months and in the cold once we get to this time of the season, so I don't think that's going to affect him. It could affect maybe some receivers that maybe aren't as comfortable in those conditions, so time will tell there, but I think the Bucks are just a little bit better of a football team as a whole right now. And then Browns versus Texans, the Deshaun Watson revenge game. I think one team's rebuilding, one team's in Super Bowl contender, so not a whole lot to talk about there. We've already talked about Week 14 and 15. The Saints, especially this late in the year, may be fighting for their playoff lives. Let me peek towards 9-5 record. I'll go ahead and give Cleveland a win against Washington. Ends the year with a loss to Pittsburgh. 10-6. I think this is an 11-6 football team, so I'll give them a win against the Saints. So kind of manipulating the system there, but 11-6 feels about right for where I would peg the Browns year one with Deshaun Watson, and really only one true above average wide receiver. Now, Amari Cooper, in my eyes, is more than above average. I just want to get that out on the record, but there's a pretty steep drop off from Amari Cooper to the next guy up, and Donovan Peoples-Jones, Mitchell Schwartz, whoever it's going to be. So 11-6 feels about right for the Browns. And the last team, Pittsburgh, we're already starting out 3-7, and for those who don't know, I just have to get this out of the way. I'm a Steelers fan, so I'm going to try not to talk too long about the weaknesses of this team, but in my eyes, there are a plethora across the offensive line. I'm worried about both quarterbacks that could be potentially starting in games, and that secondary is weak, and it's an aging front seven with Stephon Tuitt retiring at 29, so it kind of only got older, and maybe he's replaced with DeMarvin Leal, which that feels like a project third-round pick. I'd rather have him a year or two before he becomes a starter as opposed to stepping into a pretty sizable role right away. But nonetheless, let's talk about Pittsburgh. And the last note on that, I do think it's going to be the first losing season for Mike Tomlin as the head coach of the Steelers, which will end a streak of 16 straight seasons without a losing record, tying him with Ken Wisenhunt, if I'm remembering that correctly. Correct me if I'm wrong down in the comment section, but yeah, not Ken Wisenhunt, Marty Schottenheimer. There we go. Apologies for that, Marty Schottenheimer. But let's go ahead and start talking about Pittsburgh. You can already get a look at what I have going on in the early season. They're not better than Tampa Bay, so chalk that one up as a loss. A battle between the two PA teams. Philadelphia won the last matchup, so I'm going to actually have Pittsburgh stealing one on the road there. But those are two teams that could be really, really close, and that could be a really fun, if you're a fan of defensive, grinded out type of football games, that could be a fun one because, again, the strength of both these teams sit in the front four in specific pass rush. That's always been bread and butter Eagles. That's always been bread and butter Steelers. So that could be a really fun one if you like defensive football. The bye week and then Pittsburgh taking on New Orleans. I have a hard time thinking New Orleans goes 0-4 against the AFC North. So let's have the Saints pick up a win against the Steelers. Steelers and the Colts. That's a matchup where I could see, especially if Pittsburgh is taking advantage of TJ Watt against whoever the starting left tackle might be for the Colts. Is it, Bernard Ryman? Is he picking up the game right away despite being a rookie? He's got his injury history. Is he even on the field? Did he bring back an Eric Fisher? a lot to be seen there, but that could be a battle in a matchup, especially with a very immobile Matt Ryan. Maybe Pittsburgh's pass rush makes enough of an impact, and Indianapolis isn't necessarily known for having, great wide receivers. I like Michael Pittman, but maybe they don't have enough of a strength there to totally exploit a weakness of Pittsburgh. Let's have the Steelers winning one on the road, and let's make it back-to-back wins against the Falcons. Then it becomes 3 in a row with this series split against the Ravens. Pittsburgh picks up a win against Carolina. Then we'll suffer a loss against the Raiders. I just cannot see anybody in the Pittsburgh secondary checking Davante Adams. Then if you decide to double him, who's slowing down Darren Waller? Who's got an answer against Hunter Renfrow? I'm trying to think the Raiders are going to have, especially Davante Adams, he's kind of the ultimate checkmate. Maybe they have enough weapons to force teams into bad situations there. So that's kind of where I think Pittsburgh 7-10, that honestly feels about right. That's about what I would have guessed coming into the season. I think this will be the first losing season for Mike Tomlin as the head coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but obviously a lot can change here for all 4 of these teams. And again, I will be, doing this all one final video right before we get into the regular season, all 32 teams in one single sitting. So you'll get more of my thoughts then, but that's going to do it for today's video. This is my outlook for the AFC North. Tell me what you think down below. Who do I have winning too many games? Who do I have winning too few? And also, again, comment some video ideas for the future and throughout the rest of the summer. I'd love to hear your take about some stuff you want to hear me talk about. Hopefully you'll enjoy today's video. If you did, be sure to hit that like button. If you're new around here, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button as well. That's going to do it for me. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. Until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.